Facebook Live. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. I'm Kino from STEMWithKino.com, and I'd like to welcome you to Afoqt Weekly. This is the place you need to be if you're preparing for the AFOQT, which is the aptitude test that officers take, or commissioned officers take in the United States Air Force. Okay, we are going in on our historical side of things, and let me pull my other window up just in case. Okay, there we go. Okay, some other windows up. Okay. So yeah, this is the place where you need to be if you're going to prepare to take AFOQT. Now, I had some technical difficulties today. Let me start off by saying that I had some technical difficulties today. Not really technical difficulties. My schedule book was left at home, and when I got to the office, my whole day went crazy. But be that as it may, I have it now, and we're going to press on here. And so some rescheduling is going to be need to be done for some people that were missed today. I sent out like a message saying, oh, when's your next time? And I think people put their next times in after today. So that was like a debacle. So moving forward, I'm going to have to change some type of electronic scheduling system to rectify that problem, should that happen in the future. So back into United States Air Force history in the Korean War, as we talked about before, a lot of the leadership in the United States Air Force felt like, okay, look, the Air Force is on trial. Like, we're going to have to prove ourselves that we can be a separate Air Force, and we can be effective, which they have proven to be an effective separate Air Force, aside from the Army Air Corps and like the World War days. And okay, so I actually had, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but there was a F-86 Saberjet video that I did, and there was some technical difficulties with that. My throttle disconnected or something from the system, some kind of way. And I did get it worked out, so I will be doing more videos, but I just wanted to show you guys what the actual aircraft looked like and how it looked like, firing the thing up and taking it up. And it was pretty cool. Would I suggest buying that simulator? No, I would not. And I don't know. I went through the manual and all that and everything, and a lot of things don't work in it. Now, you can fly at VFR. I mean, as long as you got power and you can kind of see out of the cockpit, then, you can maneuver and do some things. But, it was just for, I guess, like a visual, or what I guess you could call like a showpiece or something like that. So, yeah, I know a lot of my followers and subscribers, sorry, shoulder's a little sore. I know like a lot of our subscribers, they kind of, what's a good sim to buy? Okay, that would not be one, in my opinion, because and the guys that you guys that put it together, if you guys want to reach out to me, fine. But the attitude indicator wasn't working, so you can't fly to IFR. The compass was not rolling with the turns and things like that. And then when the throttle disconnected, I was kind of just like, okay, all right. So I will look into it again and see if there's anything I can do to fix these quirks. And if not, then, hey, we're going to be moving on to other aircraft anyway. But it was just, I thought, something cool that I could put in the sim and everything. So back to Air Force history. Well, the big guys, meaning the aircraft that were being used by, the Korean side and the United States Air Force side, were the MiG-15 and the F-86. That's why I did the F-86 Saberjet. And there were some comparisons. I was like, okay, well, what are some of the performance advantages and stuff like that. You know, why, when you go to a manufacturer, okay, we need a plane to do this. Okay, and the MiG-15 was pretty much that enemy aircraft that was, what the U.S. was looking at. Now, there were some really, really performance characteristics that, killed a lot of American pilots. Okay, because, when you first put an airplane out there and everything, and I'll just put an aircraft when it's just brand new, just rolling off. The assembly tested it and stuff like that, but there's still going to have to be some, how do I say? There's still going to have to be some, there's going to be some data. There's going to have to be some data collected, with all the mishaps and incidents that may occur and possible crashes and stuff like that. So, they got to compile that data, right? So you have the F-86A. That's the first guy, right? And I'm just hypothetically speaking. So then pilots are, due to the way that maybe there's an operation or something where the pilots have to like reach down maybe to the floor level and do something and everything that might have them get or become more susceptible to spatial disorientation because of the movement and the clouds and stuff. And they might collect that data and say, okay, 5 of these guys crashed. What were the conditions? Because there's always the pilot, the machine, and the environment. So, at the end of the day, they're like, well, these 5 guys had incidents and stuff. Well, what happened? Well, they were on an instrument approach, and, they were in part of the checklist where they did this, and then that's where everything went haywire. Okay, well, maybe they might move the position of that said item, lever, switch, button, panel, whatever. Okay, so then you get the B model, then the C model, and then that's when they implement all the changes and stuff like that. Then when you get like to the D to E model, then it's like, man, this plane is like, all the quirks that it had before doesn't happen anymore. No, they don't have them anymore. So basically, another thing was the training. It wasn't just, the F-86 was the aircraft for the to fight against the MiG-15, but it was like the training, United States Air Force pilots. So let's talk about the first aerial victories. On the morning of June 26, 1950, one day after the start of the war, the United States Air Force's 68th Fighter Wing, it was an all-weather squadron, sent 4 F-82G aircraft. Now, here's the thing: they were still shooting at these jet aircraft, and when they were flying jets, these guys, U.S. pilots, were flying propeller aircraft, and they were still shooting down jet aircraft. That's like, wow, okay, I'm flying this jet, and this guy comes up in a prop plane and blows me out of the sky or blows his airplane from under me. That's saying a lot about the skill. And there's a little saying, it ain't the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So, yeah, that was kind of, impressive for, when we look at the United States Air Force. But, like a lot of these United States Air Force pilots were combat tested. Like it wasn't their first time shooting down, so they knew how to kind of get a solution and, and engage aircraft and stuff like that. So, that's one thing. But an F-82 piloted by Lieutenant William G. Hudson and carrying Lieutenant Carl Fraser as radar operator claimed a Yak-11. So it didn't shoot down the MiG yet. And so, let's see, the birth of jet combat. Okay, so that was one of the first aerial victories, but when we get on later, okay. All right, so the birth of jet combat. The Korean War served as an arena for history's first air-to-air combat by jet-propelled aircraft. The United States Air Force pilots did not start scoring heavily against the Russian-made MiG-15 until the F-86 Alpha, the A model, Sabre arrived in Korea in the late 1950s. Then the victories began to mount, and by the end of the hostilities in July, 38 United States Air Force pilots had become aces. If you shot down 5 aircraft, you were an ace, or 5 or more. And these were nearly all MiG-15s, so, that said a lot. The first jet-to-jet victory took place on November 8th, 1950, when Lieutenant Russell J. Brown, flying an F-80C, shot down a much faster MiG-15. So even in the F-80C, and let's pull up this F-80C, because I actually I have a download for that aircraft. I'm gonna put this on the Facebook page. So yeah, so this plane was supposed to be not as superior, not as fast, and they're still shooting out these MiG-15s. The Koreans got to be, what? What's going on? We got the big bad Russian plane, and nothing against Russians. I love you guys. Love everybody. But yeah, this is just historically speaking. This Russian-built aircraft was shot down by what was supposed to be a less superior aircraft. Okay. So yeah. So then we have this place called MiG Alley. That's what they called MiG Alley. The MiG-15 was good, but hardly the super fighter that would strike terror in the heart of the West. There was no question that the F-86 was the better fighter. Let me see, checking that. John, how you doing, buddy? So Soviet leader Joseph Stalin feared that if a Soviet MiG-15 pilot was captured, it would prove the Soviet direct involvement in the war. So that was another thing too. There were some things going on that it was said that actual Russian pilots were actually flying these aircraft. Well, I would assume they had to be training them, like the United States. We have allies and stuff, and at some point, I'm pretty sure, say like the Israelis, they fly F-15s, F-16s, they fly all kinds of stuff that we have in our inventory. And I'm sure at some point either Israeli pilots came over here or American pilots went over there and said, okay, man, this is how you fire this thing up, man. Here's a POH, pilot operating handbook. And, this is how we fly it. Probably took them up, flew it around, not necessarily in combat, but, you never know. There might have been some slick stuff going on there. Okay, so we're going to, and then later on, let me just put this on. Okay, so opening the archives in former Soviet Union confirmed the fact that long had been denied. So the Russia had been provided many of the MiG-15 pilots that fought in an area called MiG Alley, where the F-86s and the MiG-15s would mix it up. Like their U.S. opponent, several of these Soviet pilots were World War II combat veterans. So that's what I'm saying. These guys, they were seasoned. They weren't just, green and like, I want to be a fighter pilot. No, it was nothing like that. I mean, a lot of these guys had a lot of the experience from World War II. And, so naturally you could take probably a propeller-driven aircraft and a very highly skilled pilot, and then shoot down a jet aircraft. As a matter of fact, the Germans actually had the first operational jet fighter, and I want to say it's the Messerschmitt 262. But the pilots, they had all this power, but they didn't know how to employ it or use it. So let's just say you go or when it's called a hard cross, where these two pilots are about to engage each other, and then boom, and they go on a hard cross, right? And then they're turning around. Well, this guy is rolling at probably 600 miles an hour. I'm just throwing numbers out there in pursuit mode, right? This guy's like $120. This guy crosses, and then by the time he actually comes out here, kind of tries to fight through the G loading and everything like that, the guy's probably 30 miles away beyond visual range. So, yeah, it's one of those things. All right. All right, let's move on to the aeronautical side of things. All right, so we'll stop at Mig Alley, and later on in the archives, finding out that the Russian pilots were engaging with American pilots over Mig Alley. All right, there we go. You're the guy I want, and let's click you. So, possible aviation information questions you could be getting. All right. Now, don't quote me on this, but I believe in the initial flight screening process, you may be responsible for taking the FAA written exam. All right, so rough day today, guys. All right, I'd like to talk about two fuel induction systems. All right, there's two types. You could have a carburetor induction system, and you could have a fuel induction system. All right, let's come on back to Facebook land, and let's plant these beautiful, beautiful jewels here. All right, I'm posting that on Facebook. So, yeah, there's two types of systems you could have. You could have a carburetor. You could have a carbureted system or a fuel injection system. Okay, a carburetor system, you have like a float type carburetor that flows through a restricted venturi. So on a lot of aircraft, on the front of aircraft, you'll have something, hey, what's that, man? It looks like, a filter and a screen. Okay, that is filtered air coming into the engine. Okay, so there's all kind of dust and particles in the air, and that filter filters things out. Okay, so it doesn't get internally into the engine. So it takes in the air and then brings it into the system, which every aircraft engine has like a fuel air mixture. On this planet, and I say on this planet because I'm not talking about spacecraft, engines need oxygen, oxidation for combusting the fuel. Okay, if you tried to light a match in a vacuum, it would not light because there's no air. You need air in order for fire. Fire, it consumes air. All right. So then what happens is it goes through a venturi tube, which there's a constriction in the middle in this tube, right? And there's a pressure difference. It's lower pressure because the velocity increases. Bernoulli's principle. We'll talk about that later. So Bernoulli's principle exists in inside engines, the wing, the carbureted air system. All right. So carburetors are normally set to deliver the correct fuel-air mixture at sea level. Since air density decreases with altitude, a mixture control allows the pilot to decrease the fuel flow as altitude increases and thus maintains the correct mixture. Otherwise, the mixture may become too rich for high altitudes. When descending, air density increases. Unless fuel flow is increased, the mixture may become excessively lean, i.e., the amount of fuel is too small for the amount of air reaching the cylinders. Modern four-stroke engines may automatically adjust the mixture control. Two-stroke engines typically require jet chain. Two-stroke engines typically require main jet changes for operations for different altitudes. Okay. In a fuel injection system, the fuel and air are just mixed prior to entering the combustion chamber, and there's no carburetor used. All right. So what's all this mean? All right. For you guys that are going to initial flight screening, you're going to be probably in a Cessna, some type of reciprocating engine aircraft. All right. And Cessna carburetor air filter. So as you pre-flight, all right, that's really nice. You can actually see it. All right. So I'm going to clip both of these and you can see how And you see mechanic, I guess he's replacing the filter. And under that, you could actually see the carburetor air system before it comes into the engine, the air duct, the cold air exchange, cold air, open it up, cold air actuator lever. You have the air filter, carburetor air valve, and the actual carburetor. All right, and there's a temperature bulb, and there's a drain line. So if it's a rainy day and a little bit of moisture gets in there, it dumps out the bottom before it goes up into the. All right, that's pretty neat. I love this stuff. All right, so the thing that we need to worry about at that Venturi tube is carburetor icing. With that drop in pressure when it goes to the Venturi tube, the tube with the constriction in the middle, that's for my YouTubers. All right, with that constriction in the middle, we get moisture in the air that can freeze up and close the throat up with ice buildup. All right, and when you're operating at a lower end of RPMs, when your propeller's rotating at, say, like, I don't know, say 1800 RPMs or 1900 or 2200 RPMs, you might be outside of what we call the green arc. And you would need to apply carburetor heat. That's all. It's no big deal. All right. But if you do get carburetor icing because you forgot to add carburetor heat, you'll get like a little reduction in RPM, and then it'll slowly come back. Normally, that's a normal operation if it hasn't built up too much. So let's get into like a couple questions here that may be happening. So you actually, like when you're driving your car doesn't go to 10,000 feet. So I would assume that no, you don't have to really go into any really big operations as far as needing to, lessen the fuel because the air's gotten, the air density has gotten thinner. Facebook people, there you go. So here's the first question. All right. The basic purpose of adjusting. Oh, it went away. Yeah, love it when this happens. Okay. It'll just be a moment, folks. We'll do a couple of these and then we'll get into questions. Okay, there we go. The basic purpose of adjusting the fuel air mixture at altitude is to A, decrease the amount of fuel in the mixture in order to compensate for increased air density. That's bull. B, decrease the fuel flow in order to compensate for decreased air density. That sounds great. C, increase the amount of fuel into the mixture to compensate for the decrease in pressure and density of the air. Okay, it is B. B is the correct answer. The basic purpose of adjusting a fuel air mixture at altitude is to decrease the fuel flow in order to compensate for the decreased air density. Your air density has decreased, and that's why we can tweak and we can lean, we call it leaning the mixture. And there's a test question. How do you lean the aircraft? All right. And a lot of people fall for the banking. Oh, leaning, yeah, you bank the aircraft. No. This is what we're referring to. You're leaning the aircraft, which you're decreasing the fuel flow in order to compensate for a decreased air density. Okay, at sea level, air density is great at sea level, but when we go to 10,000, 15, 20,000 feet, we have decreased air density, and we actually have controls in the cockpit and reciprocating engine where we can regulate, we can lessen the amount of fuel that is introduced into the engine or engines. All right, so, all right. All right, carburetor ice and carburetor heat. I'm just going to throw that in there as well on the Facebook page. Because when you pull your power back and you cool it off, sometimes you can shock cool the engine in your system. And so a lot of times what we would do, like if we were doing as an instructor, if we're doing spirals, like steep spirals where we're just kind of just spiraling and just coming down, your power is at idle. You pull it out, right? Or if you're doing a simulated engine failure from a high altitude, to give your student like, okay, boom, you pull the throttle. Okay, you just lost your engine. What are you gonna do? And I remember when I was a private trainer, I'm like, man, what? But as an experienced pilot, now you're always looking for flat stuff when you're flying. You're like, look for flat stuff. Like in the rotary wing people's, you're going to be looking for flat stuff too. So you can auto rotate when you auto rotate. When you go in an auto rotation situation where you lose your engine, you're gonna be looking for flat stuff. You're gonna be scanning, and that's what I do now. I'm like, okay, I can put it down there. I can put it down there. I can put it down there. I put it down there. So this way, if you lose the engine, you're just like, hey, dude, it was this thing. I saw the spot a mile and a half back. We can make it. You say at 9,000 feet, you can get over the area and you can just spiral down with very, very little power and get it down. So, that's something. Expect that in flight training. You just lost your engine. Boop, they throw the throttles to idle. And you're sitting there like, holy cow. Don't be that holy cow. Always as you're looking around, because VFR, you're supposed to be looking around. Your eyes are supposed to be outside of the cockpit, looking for traffic, obstructions, and things of that nature. So just keep your head on the swivel, and you will look very, very awesome to your instructor. When I had a guy, and I'm like, okay, you just lost your engine. Where are we going? Oh, right there. That fell right there. Okay, point to it. Best angle glide speed, and or whatever speed is recommended in the pilot's operating handbook in rotary wing aircraft. You start going to it, and then you start doing your little circuit procedure and everything like that. And when you think you got it made, when you got your landing area made, boom. Now at the same time, while you're descending, you're going through a restart checklist. We just don't have an engine mishap and say, oh, no, we give up. You're going to try to restart the engine or engines, okay? So it's not like, oh, we just lost the engine. Yeah, we're crashing right there. No, you try to restart the engine because there have been instances where the engine was fine. Maybe you forgot, like in your Cessna 172, to push the primer all the way in and lock it, which means you push it and you twist it and you boom. What is primer? Primer is a way we introduce fuel into the engine. Okay, if the plane's been parked and stuff like that, there's really not like fuel going in the system. So you can start just putting a little bit of fuel in there. So when the rotation starts, there's a little bit of fuel in there just to get her going. So that's my point. Okay. Albin, in vehicles, cars, O2 sensors control the lean-rich mixture supplied to the engine, plus the computer, of course. Okay, I never knew that, Albin, and thank you for supplying us with that information. But there's, like aircraft, and pilots actually have a mixture control. In cars, there's an O2 sensor. So I guess it leans and enriches the mixture. Let's say if I drove from Jersey and I drove to Denver, Colorado, I'm a mile up higher in the air. So the O2 sensor probably tells some type of engine control, hey, look, don't give them that much fuel. So yeah, you guys in Denver save a lot of fuel. I'm sorry, it's just a nerd in me. Anyway, moving right along. The only I would think about that. Oh, linear air mixture, yeah, man, they save a lot of fuel. Okay. All right. So yeah, I got the carburetor. I got the carburetor icing. We got images of the carburetor air intake. Uh, all right. So yeah. Now turbine engines don't have carbureted systems. Carburetors have fuel injection systems. So the fuel in the air is introduced uh, through. Well, let me just find something out here. Let me think of a nice, simple jet that was easy to learn. All right. Cessna Citation 2. I'm talking to the computer. I'm not crazy, guys. Cessna Citation 2 fuel injection system. Let's see what we got. Images. And as I find this stuff, I will. Okay. 5x equals. Well, I can't even say anything. Would it be okay? All right. Andrew, I see your message. And I will address you in a minute there. Okay, so what do we have here? So, all right, so here we have a typical, and this is like one of the layouts when you start going into any type of aircraft training, they're going to have a diagram or a symbol. This comes from Slide Serve. Slide Serve. I'm trying to give everybody their credits, and I'm like, you use our image and then give us credit. Well, Slide Serve is the web page that this thing came up. So I guess it's slideserve.com or whatever. All right. So you will get these, and as pilots, you're going to have to learn schematics. Just because you see schematics a certain way does not mean it's designed that way. Sometimes they just lay things out to give you a full understanding of the path of maybe electricity or air or hydraulics or whatever. So if you're looking at this, you can see there is a fuel level. There's a float gauge in the fuel tank to say, hey, this is how much fuel you have. You see a fuel return line because you got fuel under pressure, and there's a vacuum hose, and a vacuum. So you have a fuel pressure regulator. So the system has to be under pressure. Why? Because in most aircraft, the fuel tanks are below the engines. So you have to have pressure. You have to have pressure applied to it. So it gets pushed up to, so let's say we got like a aircraft, like a business aircraft, right? And this is the main fuselage, but the wings are probably down here. The fuel tanks are probably in here. Okay. And so you can't gravity feed, let's say like something like a business jet. Here's the turbines right here. These is where the engines. So these are the guys that are actually, let's put my vertical stabilizer. These are the guys that are actually consuming the fuel. So there's going to have to be a fuel line. Should have used a different color. So there's going to have to be a pump here to pump fuel up to these, take it and pump it up to these engines. So the fuel has to be under pressure. And then there's a fuel filter. If there's any garbage or anything like that, you want that filtered out. You don't want that getting into your turbines or anything like that. And then when we actually get to the turbines, then you'll have what's called injector nozzles and stuff. So that is, pretty much all I'm going to talk about aeronautically. And that went a little bit longer than I want to talk about, but I just do these from the hip. I don't, I kind of, when people talk about things or I get ideas or you guys ask questions, I just, mass airflow sensor. Alvin, you must be some car mechanic, like aficionado or work with cars or something like that, because he's dumping a lot of information. Yes, sir. Works with mass airflow sensor nonsense. Since the air density to adjust everything directly into the cylinder. So yeah, as pilots, we got to do that. We got to keep track of that. We have to be cognizant and aware. All right. If you go to high altitude, you're going to have to lean the mixture. When you descend and come back down for reciprocating aircraft, you're going to have to enrich in the mixture. You have to do it, especially if you're flying solo, because you're not going to have an instructor be like, "Yo, man, enriching your mixture, man. You know, come on, your mixture, it's not rich." You know, so yeah. Okay, checking the email. And Collins, I think Collins had a. Wow. Okay, we have 5x equals 4 times 35. All right, so Collins, I see your question. 5x, and I guess we're solving for x. There's a variable there. Okay, so let's jump in, folks. Okay, so the question is 5 times x equaling 4 times 35. All right. In my head, in my mind, guys, when I was 4 times 35, I know that 35 plus 35 is 70. So if you're going to do it 4 times, this will be 140 because 70, 70. So 35 and the 35 is 70. So I will just say this is 140. I can see it because you have another 35 and another 35. 4 times 35 is 140, which is 270. So 5x equals 140. And then we would just divide. A lost art I'm seeing with a lot of my clients. Long division. The long division is not going anywhere. You will not be able to use a calculator. How many times does 5 go into 1? 0. Now you put a 0 here, but typically we don't because there's nothing there. It's an insignificant digit. Then you ask yourself, does 5 go into 14? Yes, it does. If so, how many times? 2 times. So 5 times 2 is 10. We subtract and a 4 drops. After we do the subtraction, a 0 drops. And 5 goes into 48 times. And a decimal is here, and there's going to be a decimal here. So x is going to be equal to 28, guys. All right. 5 times 8 is 40. 0 out, and boom. And we're done, and that completes it. All right. So it zeroes out. All right, posted another question on the Facebook page. There is something called a pre-takeoff test or check, or what we would call a run-up. Okay. A run-up is kind of like your last chance or opportunity. I don't like saying chance. Let's use opportunity. It's your last opportunity to make sure that everything is functioning properly before you take off. So a lot of times you really don't see it in a lot of commercial operations. I'm trying to think. We would probably do a run up. Like, let's say if you're flying corporate. All right. You're flying corporate. So here's your base. And let's say you picked up somebody at like KDT airport, and this is where your passengers are, or your cargo is, and then they're going to blah 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 airport. XYZ airport, and you're going to be there 2 days. And so we would probably do the run up here. All right. And the run up procedure is kind of where you scare the heck out of the passengers if you kind of threw the throttles into almost a takeoff situation. I don't want to say a takeoff situation, but like when you run up, you throw the throttles up or throttle up, and they rumble it airplane, and you check like the magnetos and reciprocating engines and stuff like that. Uh, most turbine aircraft, you do a pre-takeoff check. A run-up's not needed, but for propeller-driven aircraft, I think it would scare the hell out of the passengers if they're like, "Dude, we're not on the runway yet. Why is this, what is the pilot doing?" So basically, you would do your run-up at the base and check it. You get your passengers, or you can do a run-up before you pick up your passengers, right? But it's kind of like a final stage pre-takeoff check, and then boom, you pick them up, you take them down to XYZ airport, and then maybe the night before, we would always, if you had a layover, me personally, I'd always go back to the airport, do a walk-around inspection of the aircraft to make sure nothing has changed because it's been parking. If you get your aircraft hangar, that'd be great, but every airport you will not always have hangar space for your big whatever you're flying. Okay, we got 6 minutes left. Yeah, so you won't always find a hangar in what we call the transient parking area. Hangars are great, like snow time and stuff like that. You don't want to have to walk around and be walking on the wing and stuff dripping and snow and all that and everything. I've been through all kinds of stuff. So if it's hangar, then it's sheltered and you won't get any snow and icing and stuff like that. Sometimes you'll come out to your aircraft in the wintertime and it's like, like a half-inch thick ice on it, Kind of like if you look at your house, the roof, it's like a sheet of ice on it. Same thing with aircraft if it's not in a hangar. And then if you get a temperature-controlled hangar, that's the bomb right there. That's the ish. Yeah, if you could get a temperature-controlled hangar, that's what's up. You'd be like, okay, It's like your airplane was parked in Florida somewhere as opposed to Buffalo, New York. All right. So, guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for your questions. There will be no SIF this weekend. I am going fishing. So this Saturday, I do have a couple clients on Saturday that I will be addressing, but yeah, there will be no live stream on Sunday, just so you guys know. We will pick up the SIF live stream again on the 26th. So I will see you guys. Everybody, thanks for coming out. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for watching. I'm Kino with STEMwithKino.com, and this is Afoqt Weekly. Good day.